Hello and welcome to this edition of Diaspora Central Spotlight. I am Gil Ingles, and with us today in the studio, ladies and gentlemen, is a man that believes that if you believe in change and if you know that change needs to be put in place, then you must be inside to make it happen. Mr. Robert Slater, welcome to Diaspora Central Spotlight.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. It's about time to make that change, huh?
It's overdue,
Yeah.
but it's never too late.
There you go. Are you Houston based?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Born and raised.
Born and raised.
Okay. Which ward or which borough?
Really all over.
Okay.
Well, let me correct that. I did spend a few times in Los Angeles back and forth.
Okay.
From my mother and living with my grandmother. So, A-Leaf, Acres Homes,
Okay.
Fifth Ward.
Oh, wow.
As well as the Southeast, Clear Lake, League City area. So
Okay.
all over. I call Houston my
Yeah.
home as a whole.
Yeah, you definitely are Houstonian. You've been all around.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So making big moves though.
Man, every move we should make in life should be big.
Right.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Indeed. It's very little time, right? This is life, not a dress rehearsal, right?
Listen, never take it for granted.
Indeed, never. So here we like to share our journeys. We like to talk about our starting our inspirations and ending our aspirations, right? And I'm sure that to become this influential figure that you have now become, right? Other people have somewhat influenced you. You have had inspiration from other individuals also, and those are the people that we kind of want to touch on, and that's part of the conversation that we kind of want to have.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So if you are ready, I believe that I am ready to start that
Let's get it,
conversation.
Mr. Gill.
Yes, sir. Mr. Robert Slater, representing Houston to the fullest.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
Somebody has to do it.
Yeah. Come from a big family.
A very big matriarch family.
Yeah.
Family full of women.
Oh, there you go.
Full of women.
Yeah. Just give us some names. Mom.
So, my mother, Harriet LaVon Slater. My grandmother was the matriarch, Iris Davis. She passed away. I have 5 aunts, one
Okay.
uncle, and about 41 cousins.
Oh,
Out
wow.
Out of the 41, 36 are women.
Oh, that's a big family.
Yeah. It's big. It's big.
That is a big family. So, wow.
Yeah.
Gracious. How many siblings?
I have 2 sisters.
Okay.
And I am the oldest.
Okay.
I have 3 children.
Gotcha.
2 sons and a daughter.
There you go.
So we're a big, loving family.
Yeah.
Come from all paths of life. Represent. We have very, very, very poor.
Right.
And we have successful.
There you go.
And we make it work as a family should.
Hey, when you come from the bottom, there's only one way to go, right?
one up.
To the
Absolutely.
top.
Absolutely.
Indeed. And then, and that's, I guess, what kind of leads you into becoming this person that
Yes.
today wants to better the
Absolutely.
environment where you actually
Absolutely.
are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But we're going to get there because we got to take small steps here because this is a lot to digest in just one sitting. So let's start with schools. You spoke about mother. Did you give us the name?
Yes. I
Yeah.
can. Yes.
Gave us the name. Give us the name again just so I remember.
Harriet LaVon Slater.
Harriet LaVon. Yeah. And what about your father? Was
My
he?
father's Robert Slater Sr.
Yeah.
He's from Natchez, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up in the segregated South.
Okay.
He grew up around the foster home system of care, and that's a story. But eventually he, worked his way out. As soon as he got out of the foster home system, he put himself in the United States Army.
Okay.
Traveled around the world, came back.
Yeah.
Great man. He's an usher in his church to this day. I think I've never heard him say a cuss word.
There you go.
But a very, very great example, one of the greatest men I know. So.
Yeah. An exemplary man.
Absolutely.
Right. And you know that that's a boss.
Absolutely.
Because he has made a boss.
He is the
Yeah.
boss. Yes.
You're not a boss until you make a boss.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
indeed. Yeah. So you born and raised here in Houston. You went to the school, to the public school system.
Yes.
Or private system. What schools did you
I
go
went
to
to public.
initially?
I went to an A-Leaf Clothing, A-Leaf Middle School. I went to Sharpstown Middle School.
Okay.
I went to Eisenhower for a brief stint. Then I went to the Southeast, and I went to Clearbrook High School.
Okay.
And that's where I finished my high school days. Right after school, and probably get into it. As a young knucklehead, I found myself in a little bit of trouble. And I was actually incarcerated.
Oh.
and I went to, was incarcerated for 10 years.
Oh, man.
Yeah, 2003 to 2013. And not to get ahead of your interview.
No, go ahead.
But,
this is a conversation, so
absolutely. That's where, it's like the wilderness for me had begun, and I started knowing who I was, loving myself more, and studying, becoming a man of the world and history and things like that. Upon my release from prison in 2013, by then I had a couple of degrees that I earned in prison.
Right.
One in marketing, behavioral science, and culinary.
Okay.
And the first job I got was for a little place called Top Golf at the time. I started there as a cook.
Okay.
And over time, I worked my way up to become that company's first black executive chef.
Oh, wow.
And then I became their corporate chef and ran some Top Golfs across the country. Right. And I left there and moved to Dallas, and I became a corporate chef for Del Frisco's Steakhouse.
Okay.
And I was their corporate chef. Yeah. And so, again, first black.
Indeed.
Running an Italian restaurant. And after a couple of years there, I went to Live Nation, and I ran the House of Blues in the country. Once again, the first black. It's always that thing.
Yeah.
And about that time, Gil, I was doing a lot of things on the back scene, helping others, always been a passion. And I formed my own company called Rob Slate Brands, where we started teaching culinary skills to, kids that had a parent that was incarcerated or couldn't afford, but giving them a trade, giving them something to fall back on in case the workforce was a little hard.
Yes.
And then we started doing consulting, where we take our corporate structure and financial literacy and take them to mom and pop restaurants and in the the black community, if you will, to give them some strength to weather the storms. And then I started my own company, my own restaurant, and we're building it in League City. It's called Slate Table and Bar. It's actually opening in March. And once again, I'll be the first black chef with an Italian restaurant.
There you go.
So I'm always going something different outside and pushing it and whatnot. So I always say my life is like from a statistic to a success, but you have a story.
Right.
And being, an example that you get to rewrite your life every single day, but the choice is up to you. So.
Indeed. Self-discovery and not being afraid of facing up and definitely changing what you believe that can be changed so that you can become who you want to become.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the power of representation in this entire process plays a major role.
Absolutely.
Right. So, as a young man, were you always into culinary? Were you into?
Yes. Yes and no.
Okay.
A few things happened growing up. We were homeless at times. Me and my mother actually stayed in the Star Hope Mission shelter for 8 months. I've seen my mother cry and go to a neighbor to ask them, if sometimes they can feed me, she'll be okay. But and watching my mother do that affected me in a way I didn't understand. But I just knew that was the first time I saw my mother cry.
Right.
And it was related to food. So I started taking an interest into saving food and not wasting food and cooking food, and I would never go hungry again if that is what made my mother cry. And it just became a natural interest in food and feeding others, and I would never go hungry, but I don't want nobody else hungry either. So that is where that passion derived from, and it's in my heart to this day.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. So middle school and high school, any teachers that played some sort of a role in your life that somewhat influenced you?
Yes.
Yeah, or noticed some sort of a gift in you?
Absolutely. One in particular was this young lady named Miss Burrell. She was a counselor at Clearbrook High School, which is predominantly a white school at this time. I naturally, I guess in hindsight, you could say a leader. I'm very humble and modest. But I'm like, if nobody else doing it, why not? Who say you can't do it? So we had a Black History program, and very few, wasn't strong, and I took it on my freshman year. I produced it, I wrote it, recruited, and it was such a success. And throughout the times, even to this day, she's a great person, a mentor, of just always stepping up and leading others to not be afraid, and seize the moment and every opportunity. So I've had some very blessed people along the way
Indeed.
that has stuck by.
Yeah.
You know, the friends I have today was friends that I had 20 years ago.
Yeah, and you can give the teacher's name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Miss Kathy Burrell.
There you go. Shout out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important because sometimes educators really do
Yes,
end
yes.
up formulating the individuals that
Absolutely.
become the successes, right? And we don't realize at times that children spend most of their time at school with
Absolutely.
these influences.
important.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So once you are, I guess, you go into the system for whatever reason. Once in there, you discover
Yes.
that
Honestly enough, and let me say, because I don't like the stigmatism, I had great parents. Yes, times was hard, the environment was there, but it's never an excuse. You know, you still have a choice. I made the conscious decisions on myself to make the bad decisions for my life. It wasn't reflective of my parents.
right.
So accountability was
you
the
go.
key. So once in there, I had the mentality that I'm in here, but I'm not of it. And it was actually the other inmates and the individuals that I got to know that shaped me. Forget what you see on the movies and shows. Prison is nothing but a big daycare. It's men that whine and cry all day, but I've met men that was in there for 30 years that's never getting out. I met men that was of seniors and great grandfathers. And one thing, Gil, if I may, that was touching, that they have this thing called mail call. Well, around 6:30 and 7 o'clock in the evening, the officer, the guard, would come with the mail and pass it out. Everyone would go circle her and look for that mail. I was blessed and fortunate to receive a letter, some magazines, or something to occupy my time. But there were so many that wasn't. And I would sit back, and when the end of the mail call was over, so many men in their 50s, 60s, and 70s
Right.
would bow their head and walk away.
Yeah.
The connection and importance of support and hearing from the outside was such instrumental to their survival.
Right.
And I was fortunate. And so it was the strife that they endured. Now, I'm not saying everybody in prison deserves to be
Right.
out, right?
Right.
But behind there, you saw a human side to most men that was regretful and remorseful, that just, it is what it is.
Right.
And they were creative, and they were, if they had another chance, if their life would have, and I would listen.
Right.
And so my cause was, we need to focus on the preventative measures, because at this point it's too late for most. But had this opportunity, had this path, these would have been great contributors to our community and examples. So that is when my life mission kind of, began and became more of a listener versus a preacher and telling you what you should do, what's wrong, but a listener from God. And I saw God everywhere. I saw God when walking and talking and hearing, and I talked more directly to God. And I heard God talk back. So I felt that no matter what, I'm going to be okay. But my mission was to help others to make sure they're okay and that they know that as well. So, it was deep.
Indeed, indeed. Great visions of leadership, and of course, you are now acting on that leadership. So let's go into our first break and take a look at Diaspora Central Spotlight. And our guest today is Mr. Robert Slater, who is currently running for
United States District Representation of District 18, Congress.
There you go. Shout out to District 18. We'll be right back. And we are back. If you just joined us, you're now tuned to the Diaspora Central Spotlight, and our guest today is Mr. Robert Slater. Yes, a candidate for the U.S. District 18th in Houston, Texas.
Yes.
Representative.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Represent the people.
It's getting lost these
Right.
days. We need to bring it back.
Indeed. And that takes a lot of listening and understanding. Right? Because it's not your will, but the will of the people.
Absolutely.
Right? And we need great leadership.
Yes.
We need great examples. I'm big on the power of representation, and my personal opinion is that when you lead by example, people can relate to you a lot better.
Absolutely.
Right? At some point in your life, you realize that you had the calling to become that individual.
Yes.
And you started to adjust yourself to become that person.
Yes.
Not in the best circumstances.
Right.
And you could have definitely gone probably the opposite route.
Right.
Right? Looks like your belief in religion has been big. Is there a specific church
Yes.
that you would also owe a bit of gratefulness to?
Yes. I would say Greater St. Matthew.
Okay.
It's on South Houston area. Pastor Barry. It's instrumental. The church is important,
Right.
and God is important in our lives. So those teachings that we grew up on back in the day that's kind of lost these days, that made us great, there's some good out of that. We need to go back to a little bit more structure. So
Right.
absolutely.
Indeed. Now, the need of community, of course, looks like it's something that has always played a great role, especially in the African American setting. In the African setting, period, any African descendant setting, the need of community has always been big. Being able to support and be supported,
Yes.
right? From where you stand now, if you were to tomorrow represent as you plan, what would be the day one task for you to approach?
The number one thing is to listen. Too many times as candidates, we talk, we tell you what we stand for, we make you fake promises. We're showing up just for your vote, and then they're gone. And now we're steady talking about the same issues that politicians have been talking about for 20 years: healthcare, job creation. We created a COVID vaccine in months.
Right. Right. Record time.
We fixed the epidemic.
Right.
Stop playing.
Yeah.
And the issue is that the people are putting the party above the people.
There you go.
The people makes the party.
Indeed.
I say this, it could be recorded and shared 1,000 times. The Democratic Party don't make me.
Right.
The Republican Party don't make me.
Right.
The people is where we're going. So my commitment is to listen. The coalition, town halls consistently throughout the office, transparency Zoom calls. It doesn't matter if you have 5 to 10 people in your living room. If I'm free, I will show up. I will bring some sodas and some papers and plates, and we can talk
Right.
and eat. It doesn't stop because the problems don't stop. So listening and giving transparent solutions. If it's something that I cannot do, I will tell you that I cannot do it and why. And if I try, and we fail, you will know everything along the way. So it's that investment of the people seeing their representation at work.
Right.
And true representation. We may agree and disagree on some issues, but my personal beliefs has no bearing on your belief. I still represent you.
Indeed.
And my job is to make sure that you are heard at this table. I'm a chef.
Right.
If we're all vegan, I'm not going to just cook vegan food for everybody.
Right.
I'm going to listen to your dietary needs and that pescatarian and this, and I'm going to provide a dish. But we all walk away from the table
Satisfied.
full and satisfied. So
Fully satisfied.
that's what we're going to do.
And that's actually a good relation right there. Food and being a chef.
Yes.
It's a position of service.
Yes.
Yeah. Now that servitude, that sense of servitude, was there anyone in the family, maybe was there any influence in your past that became somewhat of the roadmap to where you were going?
Absolutely. I would say definitely my father. He is one of the most giving people I know. And even growing up, we would fish and come away with a lot of fish, and he would give it out. If we caught 5 or 6 fish and the person next to us only caught 1, he'll balance it out. And I used to be like, well, that's our fish. That's and he would always tell me, no, that's the fish for us, including them. We all fish together. And even to this day, it instilled a sense of network and coalition building. It takes bringing people of different groups, ethnicities, place of origin together to create a coalition to make sure that we all move forward together. There's no disparity from one another. And that is the problem that has existed too long in our communities and with our politicians. So servitude, serve. You don't serve me. We come humble. Wash your feet. Serve, because you are representation of the work that I'm doing.
Indeed.
I want you to be your best, live your best, look your best. You're representing my work, not the other way around. So servitude is very key.
Indeed. Now, your parents, the first time you came up to them and you said, Mom, Dad, I'm thinking that I'm going to run. I'm feeling that calling.
Right.
What did they say? Because, and I'm asking that question from a perspective of understanding that, one, they come from a generation that they have seen what sometimes running for political office can do to your life. Right. And you, a different generation of, and a different mindset, because you now on the mindset of doers.
Right.
Of you are solutionist.
Yes.
We have this problem and we're gonna solve this problem. Right. Whether I'm leading the charge or aiding the charge, we going to solve this problem.
Right.
How did your parents feel when you approached them with?
I told my father first. And the first thing he said, he talked to God about it.
Okay.
I knew he was going to say that. Right. So before I even talked to him, I was talking to God. And I'll be honest with you, Gil, I was kind of running away from it. No.
Yeah.
But something kept pulling. And I had a belief that even this election, win, lose, or draw, it's a first step to even something greater.
Right.
And it's like when you know that, but it's too hard. I have to focus on running this business and doing, I don't want to do it. But when God has something, you can't escape it. So I went through that battle. And I went to my father and told him. And when I came to him and said yes, he said, then just let me know where I need to assist. And that was pretty much it. And he's a man of few words, but I know what I mean. My mother said, okay, if anybody could do it, it would be you. And she said, I had a feeling. That's where you were headed. She said, I just want you to know, because it's vulnerability. It's humility. And, you know, with my record and a stigma, felon, you have to overcome that. Right. And I made peace with it. Why I used to be afraid to say, hey, this was my record unless you ask. Right. Now I say it when I introduce my name because it's a part of me. Right. It doesn't make me. And it shows that I was that. But if you're going to mention that, then mention that second part with the successes and the overcoming of it. So that inspiration, that example is so needed now that I have to. Right. And the win for me and this campaign and our team and coalition is that it inspires somebody that's going through something, that think whatever mistakes or whatever they're going through, if you could be a veteran that come back and don't feel you have value, every day you wake up, you get a chance to rewrite your life. So they were on board immediately. We talked a little about it. We went to what can we do, and just speak your truth. Right. Do not change, and put the people first. Put the people first. Something that we need to hear from a lot more of our politicians, because after all, we do have a lot of talking heads at times and not enough doers. Absolutely. Right? Now, for people who actually would need to get, I guess, would like to get in touch with you or your campaign, where would they go? Our website is Stand with Slater, STANDWITHSLATER.com. Our social media is the same, Stand with Slater. Our number is actually my personal phone number, 346-610-3772. I don't have two phones. I don't have a Google Voice. That's my number. If I don't answer, shoot a text and I will respond. But we're very accessible. And we go with Stand with Slater because we're standing with you. We're standing for change and standing on our future. So that's where you could contact us. StandWithSlater.com, 346-610-3772. And that's leadership right there with transparency. So let's go into another break and take a look at some more content. We'll be right back. Se vai, nunca comprei jornal. Este o meu problema. Pinto os meus olhos, mas quando choro a tinta se vai. Sou colé,
And we are back. If you just joined us, you're now tuned into Diaspora Central Spotlight with Gil Ingles and our guest today. Yes, it is Mr. Robert Slater. Houston, District 18th. Stand up.
Absolutely.
Because Mr. Robert Slater is in the building.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
U.S.
Yes.
Congress.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Doesn't just happen.
No.
Yeah.
No. No.
A lot of soul searching.
Yes.
Yeah. A lot of compromising family.
Yes.
Yeah. Spouse, children. Yeah.
Yeah.
But eventually, when it is your calling, it is your calling.
Absolutely.
And sometimes the process of actually going through it may even be what reveals what our calling is.
Absolutely.
Right? In your journey to where you are now, if you had to pinpoint a specific spot or thing that you would say that placed you right at where you are today, what would that be? May even be a combination of things, if you can remember what some of those may be.
I would say the point that took me to an unapologetic don't fight forward was actually recently. During COVID, my oldest son, who's 24 now, was shot. He was shot twice. I was living in Dallas at the time, and I got the call doing an attempted robbery on him. He was shot twice, and I had to drive from Dallas to Houston at 2 o'clock in the morning, not knowing if he was alive or not. The hospitals wouldn't let you in because of COVID, and his mother didn't have no answers, and it was the worst drive ever. And eventually, we found out he was okay, but he would be paralyzed for the rest of his life. No mobility from the neck down. And when I was able to see my son and see myself in him, because he didn't want help, he didn't want sorrow, he didn't want sympathy. He was ready to accept, be accountable, be treated the same. He just wanted love. And I recognized that that's me. And at that moment, as a father, I'm living for him as an example. And this is his overcoming. This is his rewriting of his life. And through hard work and over the past 2 years, he is able to feel all of his legs. He's able to stand up and walk with braces. He's still wheelchair bound, but he's not paralyzed, and he can eventually walk. Maybe to be sane, but he could do it. And he actually just introduced me for the first time at an event the other day, and it was emotional. And he's my inspiration. So to your point of your question, that was instrumental, because it was always who I was, but it was, now it's time to do. There's so many people like my son, Travion, or like myself, that needs that inspiration, that it's not over, it's not the end. Fight.
Indeed.
So
Yeah.
that was the moment.
Indeed. Now, for the collective of the community, where you actually have been throughout your entire life, touching those lives, there's the sense of pride today of seeing you being that individual that they have actually made, who is now leading the charge or willing to lead the charge, right? And to many, it may even become that sense of that, oh, unless we win, then what are you telling them?
We're the Robin Hood of the politics.
Right.
I don't seek endorsements from companies. I want the endorsements of the people. Coalitions, organizations, community leaders, that's what we seek. This is an investment campaign. Everybody has a stock and a share. The measure of this campaign cannot be measured if we win in March 5th in the primary or lose, because it doesn't stop. Our campaign would turn into a political action committee where we would still build on that coalition. And next political cycle, those politicians will have to go through us for our endorsements, but we will hold them accountable to the issues. Our ultimate point is to drive the conversations that they're avoiding, to hold them accountable on the things that they think they can get away with, and to ensure that change is happening, period. And you could be a leader outside of the seat.
Right.
We're not abandoning the community. We're bringing them together internationally and locally, and we're going to be the highest platform. We're about to do some great things.
Right.
We're about to disrupt some things. We're not playing fair. We're not playing nice because it's been too long, and we have to start demanding. And that's the charge that we're leading.
There you go. Now, leadership and activism, right? Especially in our communities, is not something that we normally see. Who was the first individual that you ever saw that you kind of saw yourself in him? Or today you kind of look back and you see, you know what, I think this may have been the one leader or the one individual that I saw myself in.
I would say recently, another recent situation, it's actually a congressman named Willie Davis. He's a conservative, actually.
Right.
But he had a passion about funding for minorities and into the, the communities, which we don't have enough of. Right. And he called for a boycott of a bank, and no one showed up. It was literally him and two other people. And they boycotted and stayed around, and they actually created a change. It didn't take a mass amount of people. Right. It didn't take the news. What do you do when nobody's looking? There was no cameras out there. He's sweating. He was doing it, and that inspired the truth of what I stand on. It's not for shame or attention. Do the work behind the door. You will never catch a leaked tape of me cussing someone out on my staff or being disrespectful. What you see in the public is what you're going to see behind closed doors. So that's true leadership and activism. Everything is not for the cameras. Conversate, talk, listen, and deliver. And, whatever God want to reveal is for the glory, then it's up to him. He's the PR person.
There you go. Yeah, because if God is for you, who is against you, right? Indeed. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's huge. It's interesting, man. Very, very interesting. Especially when we're looking at someone that is actually born and raised in this city. Absolutely. You've seen many of the changes that the city has had throughout all these years, right? Some of the good things that you have always loved about this city, what would they be?
Entrepreneurship. And that is one of the pillars of our campaign. Our talking points are not your typical. Houston has the largest, LLC registration in the country. But we have no funding. Right. If you want to open up a grocery store tomorrow, Gil, you got to have a guarantee or somebody with the 999 credit score and funding. But you have the idea, you have the passion and vision, but nobody's investing in that. So entrepreneurship is valuable and key. And Houston is a city of hustlers, and we strive, and especially in our female businesswomen. So I had a great opportunity with Dr. Hope Foster, who's our campaign chairman as well. She owns Signature Sips, and she's the only black female that owns a winery in the state of Texas.
That is correct.
And I'm proud of her. And I see so many young individuals like her. So a big thing for me is to, not just from a federal standpoint, but bring in those dollars into the city to invest. Not just education doesn't stop at a collegiate level. A lot of great business people started their companies in the age of 50s and 40s. So we could take that federal land and funding to create campuses where we can incubate the business leaders, and we could bring in those Goldman Sachs and people to mentor them on financial literacy and credit and things like that to mitigate the risk of loans. And then we create our own real Shark Tanks and investment pitches. We create our own ecosystem of success. We bring the money. Then we start having black banks and black investment firms, and we're investing in our people, into your creativity and passion. And instead of them exploiting us for our creativity and culture, we invest in it to let our people benefit from it.
There you go. And you had mentioned something previously, which was vocational training.
Yes.
As one of the things that you believe in and that you do, and seems to be one of those things that the system is really somewhat taken out of place,
Yes.
right? Leaving individuals somewhat without the ability of probably getting a higher education,
Yes.
pretty much high and dry, because
Right.
there are no other options. Um, to you, I'm assuming that when you went through school, vocational training was still in place, or
Yes.
it was still in place.
Absolutely.
Was that something that you took advantage of?
I did. And
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
in the prison system, they had some educational, you could go here. It was a crazy price,
Mm-hmm.
but if you spend your time, I had nothing but time.
Right.
So I stayed in school, stayed out of trouble.
Yeah.
The hard thing is, okay, you get out, you have this piece of paper,
Right.
but then what do you do next? And that's where you feel at. You feel a pride in a sense, but no one teaches you how to transition.
Right.
I was determined and refused. And if a door closes, I'm going to go through another one, so on and so
Right.
forth. So vocational trades and investing in the talents and the tools that you have is something we need to invest more and more in. College is great. Higher learning is great. Education is key. But the applications of talents and trades and unionized working and hard working needs to have livable wages. We need to encourage it and not stigmatize it and increase the benefits for it because it's a driving force of this economy.
Yeah. Indeed. Now, as an example, of course, of what a second chance can do to a community, you are, the great example of that. A successful businessman, a man that, let's say, for lack of better terminology, pulled himself from the bootstraps, right? Accountability.
Yes.
That becomes part of the principle or the essence, of course, of who you are.
Yes.
And it starts to show.
Yes.
Because the community then starts to reflect that. Okay. So when it comes to the reform in the prison system currently, it's something that has basically become a talking point for just about every person running, right? As someone who actually was in that system, someone who got out of that system and now is looking into being able to change that system, what would be the first thing that you would do to ensure that at least one step was taken during your term?
Gil, I have already written my first bill, and it's called the Recidivism Act.
Okay.
And what that is that when someone is released, if the state of Texas had deemed this person as being rehabilitated and had given them a chance, we need to stop the regulations. The state of Texas has 4,500 restrictions against people with incarcerations. Gil, to sum it up, I can own 2 restaurants.
Okay.
I could run for Congress, but I cannot get an apartment in my name as I sit here before you.
Really?
It makes no sense. So they can't get housing, they can't get funding, and they can't get a good percentage of employment. So the Recidivism Act is based similar to our health care insurance. You take this individual and they pay into a system like insurance, and it's a bond program, meaning that if you as an employer or a housing agent give this individual a chance, if something was to happen and you have accrued damages, you can file a claim and we'll compensate you for your damages. Take a chance on them. They've been rehabilitated. These individuals keep going back to prison. They come out with great hopes and skills, but after a while, when there's nothing left for them to do, unfortunately, they just fall back on what they know and this habit. So now it's a revolving door of the system. To break those shackles, we have to give them opportunities and bring them back into a productive society and reach out a hand and forgive, rehabilitate, but give them opportunities. And we'd be surprised what they can do. Right. And unfortunately, Gil, 33% of minorities make up this population. That's 1 in 3 black men. And if you have a child, look at your son right now. Statistics says that if you put 3 of his friends together, 1 of those individuals are going to end up in prison or jail. That is how serious this is. 33% of our men is affected by this. So creating those opportunities for those that are truly reformed and rehabilitated and give them the opportunities to contribute. It's all that we need. And those statistics would drastically start to drop because there's no opportunities.
Right. And
That's it.
right. Remind us again of the name of the bill that you have already written.
The Recidivism Act.
Recidivism Act. And with that, let's go into another quick break right here on Diaspora Central with Mr. Robert Slater. Let's take a look at some more of his content, and we'll be right back.
My name is Robert Slater. I work at Topgolf Webster. I've been working for Topgolf for 4 years now. I run my kitchen with tough love. Standards, expectations, the respect. You respect everybody, every position, at every level at all times. I grew up in a family of women who loved to cook, and my grandmother was someone that instilled that trait in them, and it passed on to my generation as well. So being a father of two, a 17-year-old and a 2-year-old, extremely picky eaters, both of them, but I figure out how to get them to the table every time I put a plate down. If I can make my sons happy, impressing the judges should be a cakewalk. Coming from Texas, where we do everything big and bold, that's what you're gonna see in my cooking. My favorite style of cooking is seafood and soul food. Just that southern flair. When I put my plate down in front of those judges, I want them to taste good memories. I want to trigger those good home-cooked meals that their grandmother, their mother, or whoever used to cook back in the day when they was taken care of and didn't have to worry about life. And my grandmother passed away, and if she was here with me, which she really is, she'd be extremely proud. I'm going to win it all for her, for my staff back at home. And I think that is the crown achievement of just cooking with love, what I stand for as a chef.
And we are back. For those of you that just joined us, you're now tuned into Diaspora Central Spotlight, and our guest today is Mr. Robert Slater. Yes, the entrepreneur, culinary entrepreneur. Health is wealth. Right?
Talk to me.
But it takes a lifestyle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
In our community, of course, what we sometimes consider eating good is not really good for us.
Yes.
But when we, as creative as a people as we are, we do with what we have, and we will make the best of it. Right? And once it becomes really good, we normally trade it for pyrite, right? Which is culture. Right? We soulful people.
Yeah.
We have soul.
Yeah.
So, on this segment, I kind of want to talk a little
Yes.
bit about
Yes.
health,
Yes.
wealth,
Yes.
entrepreneurship, yeah, well-being. Yeah.
God is good. I'm getting chills. I'm about to explode. This is yes.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship. At some point, you had to realize that, you know what? To become who I need to become, I need to do what I think is what makes me successful.
Right.
Was that thing being an entrepreneur, or was something else?
That thing was first for me to be a better human. Integrity,
Yeah.
being empathetic, listening more than talking, and comprehending more than communicating. Communication is not just talking back and forth, it's understanding what is being said. And then that set me up to, cooking and being a culinary is great. Then I elevated to being an operator. Now I own the restaurant and the front and the bar, and then the customer service piece. And then the value, going to black restaurants, you may buy hookah, you pay parking lot, you'll spend $100 before you get to the table.
Right.
It's not value.
Indeed.
Creating an experience and service, it's different. And we're service to people, so we know what it takes. But so yes, it was the moment of just being a better human and an example, to be able to connect.
Yeah. It's a process.
It's a process.
It's a
Absolutely.
process. Now, You mentioned something important in that process, which was understanding value. Do you believe that our community currently needs more examples of people that can help it understand what the value is? Because even as we look at the culture in itself, right, we blame the vultures, but for there to be vultures, there's got to be someone that initially kills it.
Listen,
right?
Listen.
Vultures primarily, they go for
Yes. Yes.
dead or sick or ill stuff. As a matter of fact, they hang around it
Right.
because they know that eventually it's gonna kaput.
Right.
And once it kaputs, they're gonna eat. So your take?
I mean, beyond well said, it goes to the accountability. No blame. Let's look at ourselves. Let's open up and what they call air our dirty laundry out and have those hard conversations on mental health, abuse, sexual abuse in the home, out the work. Those conversations that we shy away from because we don't want to shame our name in the family. God won't allow that. We address it, we fix it, and then we can really, exemplify God's glory. That's A. B, and if you don't mind, segue into the health piece because health is so huge to us. And as I say, you hear politicians talking about the top line points, but they're not talking about solutions. This campaign is big on the preventative measures of health. In District 18, on average, there is, in a 1 square mile area, there's 4 liquor stores, there's 5 pawn shops, and there's 7 quick and payday cash loan opportunities. In case you need a lifeline, get a quick loan, but we're going to tax you 80% interest. But there's only 4 Whole Food markets in the entire district. A district of 800,000 people, a quarter of the city. There's only 4 Whole Food markets, and there's 1 or 2, I think, farmer markets. People will do better if they know better. And instead of talking we need to educate in a relatable way to understand. Healthier eating, but make it accessible and affordable. This gallon of red fruit punch that's $1 that has all these cancer products and dye and sugar is so accessible because that is what I can afford. But this organic cabbage is 10 times as that. And I ask, how can an organic vegetable that has no pesticides, no chemicals be more than the one that has all these chemicals and products that you created? How is that cheaper than the one that just grew out the ground? We have to go deeper, and it goes back to the trade and vocational. So taking farming and making that a thing, and gardening and tools and providing fresh produce and healthy living and the education, the importance, and making it fun, more parks for exercise, more safe bike trails and bikes and coalition around healthier living in an educated way where it's not offensive and it doesn't cost more. Our people will probably do better. But they're stuck with what they think that they're stuck with because of the economics of it. So solution-driven is taking the education of the importance and educating them in a one-on-one and bringing solutions and showing them the progress. And I think we'll see a change.
Okay. Being a solutionist. Now, financial literacy.
Yes.
One of the greatest skills. You just mentioned the quick pay shops that will take your paycheck and charge you 18% on whatever loan they'll give you for the quick cash that you think that you're getting. From a policy perspective, right? Should there be more, how can I say, more policing, right? No pun intended. More policing on financial, I don't even want to say financial markets, but financial processes such as those. Because in all honesty, I believe that they know exactly what the end game is going to be. Right. But yet, they allow someone to drive right through that spot and get caught up in it. And then from a corporate perspective, you can always write it off or even take an insurance claim and call it a day. But for that individual, that could mean either game over or something worse, create game overs for other individuals that may not be or would have not been victims of that process.
Right.
From a policy aspect, what would you
Absolutely.
or would you suggest the reform?
Absolutely. The targeting and aggressive of this demographic is beyond. This is what created, and if you don't know, the housing crisis.
Okay.
They looked at the young black first-time buyers and eased the rate for them to get that funding, even though they wasn't set up to properly get that funding, which increased the risk on that. And it sounded good. Hey, but there are markers in place that would teach you the benefit of planning and to be able to sustain. Typically, we have a demographic that is for self-gratification versus life gratification. And that's not a bad thing. We just have to teach on the planning on a long term. But to your point, Gil, absolutely, the predatory practices of these entities has to stop. And this is what I suggest. We have enough money in our community to where if we set up I call it a lifeline institution, Gil, you and I, a quick loan for low interest. I want to see that if you want this lifeline, it's not just transactional. Let me see some community service. Let me see some volunteer work that goes along with it. I have some seniors that need their grass cut and need some groceries, da-da-da. So you give me 20 hours a week, da-da-da, and I'll let you qualify for this. It's teaching working hard. They're going to appreciate that dollar more. And our culture is self-sustained. That's outside the box thinking that we need to be able to self-sustain. But as far as the others coming into the community and preying on them, there has to be regulations. There has to be a top line point on interest, and because now your credit is, and we're already struggling on credit issues. So we need to look at that and stop the predatory and really. People that really need those quick loans, we need to set up avenues for them to do it without damaging and having a long-term effects, because that individual long-term effects is going to affect the community, so on and so forth. So absolutely, reform is needed.
Indeed. Policy. Now, we were talking about health, wealth, well-being, of course, exercise. Something that starting to lack now in our community. Interesting enough, right? We seem to be the most athletic, but we now the ones impacted with the most bad habits. Mindset. Yeah. What, in your opinion, can the community start doing to change some of that? And it can be from a policy perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It goes back to that ecosystem that I say. The exploitation of our natural athleticism is running rampant. Now our college kids could get endorsement monies, which is great. But now we have a culture where a kid that's 6 years old by a single mother is in every little league sport, every little league. Every kid has to become a football player or a basketball player. We have more kids aspiring to be an athlete than doctors and lawyers these days. Or the lowest, we have very few kids that want to grow up to do something for their community, be a leader, or be the president of the United States. We have to take a step back and bring the education and the arts into it. For example, with my son, every time you want to play football, you have to play an instrument. You have to play the piano, just something.
Right.
You know, you have to learn something. So it's a balance, and whatever you want to do, so be it. But from a policy standpoint, from exercise and engaging off of our talent, if you will, I want to look to see how is that benefiting a community. To get Stephon Curry down here for Westheimer to show up, but you have a foundation and you want tax credits. No, every tax credit that a business or a financial stable entity wants off the back of the community. I want to see what is that doing to represent the community, because the people that's paying at the bottom of the poverty line, their taxes don't get cut.
Right.
They don't get no cut of write-offs or this and that. So we have to tie in more from businesses, corporations, and these large entities to do more for the community, not just name and facing cameras, but real tangible, build parks, sponsor programs. Stephon Curry, build me a park. $2 million, give me a lot of acreage in after-school programs. It's money there. We have to redirect it to our communities, will be the key.
Yeah. Now, keeping that money also is something that we need to, I guess, start working on, because looks like our communities have now become a community of consumers. Right? Consumerism.
Yes.
And here we start to transition a little bit into the continent. Right? Just from the aspect that we're looking at on the African continent, which is probably the youngest continent in the world, right? The majority of young people in the world right now are in Africa.
Absolutely.
Right? So let's consider that the continent of the future.
Absolutely.
As a United States leader, let's talk a little bit about the diaspora community and the transition to the continent in your perspective.
Well, let me give you one better. My foundation, Piecemeal, I can't go too much in detail. It's actually building a great partnership with Nigeria right now by way of the culinary trade. And we're going to be so excited when we launch that out. Africa is not only the future, it's the past and the foundation.
Right.
Let's be clear on that.
Indeed.
But she has been overlooked for far too long. When we talk, the United States is a global economy. It's a global leader. But there's so many disparities in how our global influence is allocated. And Africa is always too far along at the bottom of that list. We jump to defend so many nations in war, Ukraine, Israel, so on and so forth. And rightfully so in some cases. But tanks going over into a border shouldn't be the only call for a major investment. Hunger, strife, the way of life should be invested as well. But also education. Africa's beautiful. It's not, Nigeria's beautiful. Let's increase tourism. Let's send some business there. Let's send some investment there. Let's talk about the private sector going there, but let's also talk about the business that's created from Africa to come here. So creating that education, that gap, without exploitation, is needed. Africa deserves the hand to walk hand in hand with the United States, because Africa has built the United States by way of African Americans, by way of the diamonds, whatever pothole you want to go down, I got time.
Indeed.
But reparations for Africa as a continent, appreciation, recognizing, and investment is long overdue. The young folks, and you talk about that demographic, they're leaders. They're educators. They're engineers. We need to get them into the sector, especially in Houston, one of the largest medical center districts in the world. Engineering, oil and gas is here. Those young folks in Africa need those jobs first and foremost. We need to talk to we go on and on, Gil.
Right.
But that is a priority on the international community. So to reiterate, when we talk about as a U.S. leader and the United States being a global figure, that continent, is at the top. Let me say it again. Record it for the future. It's at the top, number one, on my list. It's Africa.
Indeed. Now, have you had a chance to visit the continent yet?
I have 3 trips set up for the next 3 months,
There
even
you go.
outside this campaign.
Indeed.
Outside this campaign.
Indeed.
And I can't wait.
Yeah, and that's gonna be what countries, if you
We're
don't
going
mind
to
sharing?
Nigeria, we're going to Uganda, and we are going to, I want to say Algeria and Egypt, one of the same.
Oh, okay.
But Nigeria
One
is
of
our
the
first
two.
one.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
We're trying to do both.
There you go.
Absolutely.
All right. So you get to see that the northern part of the continent.
Yeah, the northern part.
Hopefully on your next 3 months or
Yes.
later on, you get to visit the central
The
and
central
southern
middle.
part of the
Absolutely.
continent also.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience that you think that would be valuable for them?
Absolutely. And I just want to say this, and Gil, thank you for having me. the term of the international community, it's great. I don't do well with terms and different groups and separations. When I look at Gil, I see me, and vice versa. We can do so much more. Talking is one thing, believing is another, but it's time to do. And even if you don't live in District 18, that doesn't mean you can't support. A U.S. district office is representative of all. And when I say support, I'm not only talking about just financial. I mean, again, if you live on the outskirts, way out there in Katy, which is not in my district, but you have 10 to 12 people that have issues and want to see certain things, invite me. I will listen, and we will figure how we can cross these district lines. So support is just being active, signing up to go out and support, spread the message. Talk about these issues. The more we talk about issues and put it at the top, the more you see things getting done. So being a leader and creating a coalition, that is the point of why we're here. So I just thank you for all of you and all of your listeners and viewers. And again, standwithslater.com. Call me, reach out to Gil, get in contact. Whatever I got to do, I'm showing up. So.
Indeed. We appreciate that, because we'll definitely have that information also available on our website, which is diasporacentral.net. But for those that may be either new to Houston, of course, Houston is now this place that is up and coming, a lot of people coming in. For those who are new to Houston, or those that may not even know, what exactly would entail U.S. District 18?
So you would think that these districts are like a simple square and circle, but this little funky thing looked like a crab leg. And I'll give you the visual.
Sure.
But it encompasses Acres Home, Northwest Houston. It goes way up north above the Beltway to Humble, Cypress. Then it comes down around to the northeast side, which is Houston. Fifth Ward, Trinity Gardens. Then it cuts right down the middle, which is all of downtown Houston, which makes it such a powerful district. Then it covers Third Ward and kind of the top of Sunnyside, South Park. So for those that know a little bit about Houston, I said Acres Home, Fifth Ward, South Park. Do you see the connection where I'm going?
Yeah, those are the historically black
correct
neighborhoods in the
so they wrote the district to put all of us in one group on purpose. That's what represents us. So that's the way it's carved out. And outside, if it's the Heights or Upper Kirby, that goes into another district. So they box us all in. That Acres Home have the same voice or representation as South Park and then Fifth Ward. So it's by design. The problem is that for the past 28 years, nothing has gotten done. This district, the average age is 34, Gil, just like Africa. But most of the people that vote, 90% are over the age of 65.
Whoa.
Young people are not voting. Young entrepreneurs are not voting. There's no excuse this time.
So the call is really to get the young entrepreneurs, to get the young people out there to vote, because your vote does matter.
That's the coalition.
Mr. Robert Slater, we appreciate you for
so
coming
much.
through. And for those of you that took a few minutes out of your life to join us and listen to this conversation, remember, unless you take action, nobody else will. So for your better life, start acting today. Until next time, peace.